Not long after having a one-night stand with my green tea roommate, he came to me with the pregnancy test report, crying and asking me to take responsibility. After I checked everywhere and found out it was true, I had no choice but to play the role of his husband. Unexpectedly, when I was preparing to get the marriage certificate, I accidentally discovered his cell phone search history. Can men get pregnant? Is there a mysterious race whose males can get pregnant? How to use children to tie a man's heart? Then I realized that I had been fooled. I was wondering how a man could get pregnant, and it was obviously me who was being pressed, so it was me who should get pregnant. Is it his turn? 1. When I returned to the dormitory, the lights were off. The table was empty, probably because everyone had gone to bed. My eyes fell on a bed, and after making sure the curtains were drawn, my tense back finally relaxed. Then he tiptoed over and picked up the clothes he had packed early in the morning, getting ready to go to the bathroom to take a shower. Who knew that as soon as I pushed the door open and stepped in, I would run into a wall of flesh. The corners of Garrett's eyes were red, and tears were overflowing in his eyes, threatening to fall. He looked like someone who had been wronged. Not to mention that there were still a few spots of red on that cold white neck that had not yet faded. Suddenly, the only description that came to my mind was this: a poor little thing that was used up and thrown away by a scumbag. The ambiguous scene in the hotel not long ago appeared in my mind again. Panic, fear, and unwillingness to face the emotions suddenly surrounded me like a flood. In a fit of excitement, I actually thought about escaping from this place immediately. Before he could take a step, his wrist was grabbed by the person behind him. Then the whole person began to move backwards along with the powerful force. The body was suddenly pressed against the cold wall, and the boy's hoarse voice was heard. There was a hint of bitterness in his tone. "Brother, are you hiding from me? Because of that night?" As soon as I finished speaking, my eyes suddenly widened and my cheeks became warm. Memories that I don't want to recall come flooding back. My heart skipped a beat. I gritted my teeth and pretended to be calm. "Shut up. Don't mention that night." As soon as she finished speaking, the handsome boy in front of her started crying, his eyes red, crying like a pear blossom in the rain. While crying, she said, "So that's really why. I'm sorry, brother. It's all my fault. If I hadn't drunk that night, I wouldn't have been with you. You wouldn't be in such a difficult situation then." Looking at the face in front of me that looked extremely guilty, I felt mixed emotions. Even though I don't like him very much, I can't get angry enough when facing him at this moment. My heart was in a mess, so I could only pretend to be nonchalant and said, "What am I hiding from you for? It's just that the lab has been a bit busy lately, so I'm not in the dorm often. Besides, that night. I get upset when I think of that night." I scratched my hair and pushed Garrett out as if to escape. "We were just drunk that night and nothing happened. Don't you dare mention it again. I'm going to take a shower now. Don't bother me." After locking the door, I couldn't help but squat down with my head in my hands in frustration. I screamed in my heart, "Oh my God, what the hell is going on with me? Why do you treat me like this? I hate this fucking world." 2. Garrett is the third oldest in our dormitory, and I really dislike him, because every time I talk to him, I can smell the fragrance of tea. He spoke normally when talking to others, but when it was my turn, he deliberately raised his voice. "And you still call me brother? Brothers. A grown man can just call me brother and even stack it up when laying eggs. This is not the most outrageous thing. The most outrageous thing is that he seemed to know that I didn't like him and he had to stick to me. And he always bumps into my arms for no apparent reason. Even after the deed is done, you still like to act weak. According to the identification standards on the internet, he is a very typical male green tea. And it's only for me. It's good for others. I am so scared that I don't even dare to find someone to pour out my grievances to, for fear of being backstabbed. 3. Last Saturday was the youngest kid in our dormitory's birthday. As the dormitory head, I naturally organized a dinner to celebrate. Who knew that everyone got so happy that they drank too much? The school was far away and it was quite late. I will definitely be marked as coming back late if I go back. After voting, we decided to stay in a nearby hotel for one night. In order to save money, the two of them shared a room. And I got to live with Garrett. My roommates are all here, and if I refuse, it would be a disguised form of falling out. So no matter how much I disliked him, I agreed. First, it was really normal. Until later, he accidentally knocked me down, and then kissed me for no apparent reason. That was my first kiss. Can I let him go like this? But I was so drunk that I was confused and actually kissed him back. And then, we kissed for no apparent reason. Once the fire starts, things will get out of control. When I woke up the next day, I felt like I had been run over by a car. The trash can and the marks on my body all showed what happened between Garrett and I last night. I hate it, but I can't blame all the mistakes on Garrett, because I clearly remember that the second half was my own initiative. At that time, he had long hair and rosy cheeks, looking innocent and handsome. Totally hits my aesthetic point. And I thought it was a dream at the time, so I couldn't help it. And then, I really didn't mean it. It's all because of this damn alcohol. I ran away to avoid embarrassment. I hid here and there for a week. I went out as soon as Garrett went back to the dormitory. I waited until the lights were turned off and my roommates were asleep before I dared to come back in despair. I got up again before dawn. I thought I could hide longer this way, but I was caught not long after. I'm so embarrassed. It's like the boat has done a backflip. For ever since I was blocked by Garrett last time, I no longer avoid him so deliberately. After all, I was afraid that he would misunderstand me and misunderstand me about what happened that night. Although I do care. Damn it, the most precious thing for a man is his chastity. How could I not care? And this thing was given to people of the same gender. Still the person I hate. I'm so angry. And ever since that happened, every time Garrett and I get close and make eye contact, there's always an ambiguous atmosphere in the air. I just tried my best to avoid meeting him. Fortunately, the second and fourth brothers were both thick-skinned and didn't notice anything unusual between us. When people asked me about it occasionally, I always laughed it off by saying that I was busy in the lab recently. The days went on without any incident. However, just when I wanted to breathe a sigh of relief, the peace was suddenly broken. Friday night, I had just returned from a busy day in the laboratory, and as soon as I pushed the door open, I received 2 messages from the dormitory group on my phone. It was sent by the second and fourth children. Boss, we won't be back tonight because of the club party. Yes, don't miss it or worry about it. I was just about to make a joke, but suddenly I realized, if they weren't there, wouldn't it be just Garrett and I left in the dormitory? Thinking about that scene, my heart skipped a beat. Just when I was considering whether to go out for a night, Garrett suddenly stood in front of me. He suddenly took a step forward and pushed me against him. He raised his hand and closed the door. A crying voice suddenly sounded, and I looked into Garrett's red eyes. His mouth opened and closed, but the words that came out of his mouth made my brain go blank. Elder brother, I am pregnant. There was a loud bang in my ears and my eyes widened in disbelief. I know all the words. Why can't I understand them when they are put together? What is Garrett talking about? Pregnant? He's pregnant. No. How is that possible? Aren't you a man? How can a man get pregnant? And wasn't it me who was pressed that night? How the hell could you be pregnant? As if anticipating that I wouldn't believe it, Garrett handed me what looked like a report in his other hand. Then she lowered her eyes, her thick eyelashes trembled slightly, and she looked fragile. I know this sounds ridiculous and my brother might not believe it. Actually, I am not an ordinary human being. I come from a mysterious race where both men and women can get pregnant. That is why we are called God's people. Although it is just a legend in the mouths of others, it is real to me. If you don't believe me, you can look at the report card. As he spoke, he raised his head, his red eyes filled with tears. Her voice was tinged with tears and her hand was touching her abdomen. I originally wanted to have an abortion, but the doctor said that it would be too harmful to the body and was not recommended. So I asked the father of the child, my brother, do you want me to have an abortion? If you want, I'll beat you. It's not good for your health, but it doesn't matter, as long as you're happy, brother. After he finished speaking, an expression of reluctance and forbearance appeared on his face. It was as if I agreed, I would be an unforgivable bad person. Alas, my mind was in a mess, but at the same time I could smell a faint scent of tea. Looking at the thing in my hand with the very obvious pregnancy test report printed on it, my heart became even more confused. My hands started shaking involuntarily. This isn't fake, is it? What mysterious race? What kind of men and women can get pregnant? And wasn't I the one being oppressed that day? Am I having a blackout? In fact, sometimes I am on top and sometimes he is at the bottom. Just as I was thinking, Garrett's voice sounded again. His long hair fell on his shoulders, his nose was red, and he looked very pitiful. Brother, have you thought it over? Child, should I keep it or should I abort it? The second half of the sentence was almost choked with sobs, as if I said, abort it, he would burst into tears the next second. Really, how can there be a boy who cries so easily? I muttered to myself, but my tone softened involuntarily. You wait for me. I will tell you this when I come back. Also, don't cry. After stuffing the tissue I brought with me into his arms, I fled out of the dormitory door. 5. As I walked, I flipped through the report sheet in my hand. This written clearly in black and white. When my eyes fell on the word pregnant, my heart skipped a beat and the blood in my body began to freeze. What the hell? Are you serious? Does this mysterious race really exist? Men. Can men get pregnant too? Took me a long while to come back to my senses. No way, how is this possible? Doctor, I'm gonna ask the doctor. As if I had found the last straw, I quickly swiped the screen of my phone, looking for a top student in the medical department. Soon after the call was connected, a low and cold voice came. Mason? What's going on? Hearing the response, I spoke quickly. Dylan, I want to ask you a question. Is there a mysterious race of men who can get pregnant? As if feeling embarrassed, I spoke the second half of the sentence more and more quietly. This top student from the medical department is called Dylan. He is the president of our student union and is notoriously cold. I must have been crazy to call him and ask him such a question. My face suddenly felt hot in the cold wind, and I was thinking about how to ease the embarrassment by laughing it off. Suddenly, another voice came from the other end of the phone. It was a boy's voice with a lazy tone. Speak up, Dylan. Someone is asking you a question. Is there a mysterious race that can allow men to get pregnant? As soon as I finished speaking, I heard Dylan's doting yet helpless voice. Brother, stop making trouble. And then he was serious to me for a second. Yes, medical books once recorded that there was a mysterious race. Both men and women in it could get pregnant, and they were also called God's people, but few people know about it. Then, Dylan chuckled and continued, but I was lucky enough to see it a while ago. So, is Garrett like this too? Is he of that race called God's people? Is it true that he is pregnant? Standing downstairs of the dormitory, I felt like I was struck by lightning. Took me a long while to react and thank the senior. In the cold wind, I looked particularly disheveled. It's over. I really got her pregnant. Still a man. What should I do now? I'm only 19 and I'm going to be a father? Ouch. Why did I drink that day? I am extremely upset at this moment and wish I could go back in time and give myself a few big slaps. After being blown by the cold wind for almost an hour, I tremblingly opened WeChat and started sending messages to my mother. Mom, if I get someone pregnant, will you beat me to death? Less than 3 seconds after the message was sent, the cell phone rang and my mother's questioning voice was heard. Mason, you little bastard. Which girl did you go to trouble? Still pregnant. Believe it or not, I will beat you to death. Overwhelmed by the desire to survive, I hurried to explain. Mom, it's not a girl, it's a boy. There was a pause on the other end with a tone of understanding. Oh, a man. How can a man get pregnant? Are you trying to scare your mother? You didn't make this up because you wanted to come out and you were afraid I'd beat you up, did you? No, I'm not making this up. Unexpectedly, he was interrupted before he could finish his words. Well, if you like men, then you like men. Your father and I are open-minded and have no objection. But you can't do anything reckless. No, from your description, I think you are already talking nonsense. Then you are not allowed to have sex with someone and then abandon him. Choose a time later to have dinner with your boyfriend, then meet your parents and go abroad to get your marriage certificate. No, Mom, why are you? How can you be so calm? Halfway through my words, I heard my mother's rising voice on the other end of the phone. Oh, it's a mistake. No wonder, it turns out I was picked up from the trash can. After wiping my face, I walked upstairs as if I were ready to die. 6. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Garrett standing there, staring at me, like a husband waiting for his wife. My heart skipped a beat. I don't know if it was because I was thinking about the role I was about to take on, or something else, but I felt inexplicably nervous. After walking over stiffly, I said, "Why are you still standing here? Aren't you cold in the middle of the night?" The tears in the long-haired boy's eyes fell immediately, and his voice was extremely bitter. "Brother, do you want me to abort it?" Those eyes are full of brokenness, making me afraid to look at them. I tilted my head, reached out my hand very awkwardly, and held his wrist. Hit a ghost. Do I look so irresponsible? Later, we will go abroad to get the certificate. After saying that, I felt awkward and pretended to urge him. Okay, it's almost 12 o'clock. Go to bed quickly, otherwise it will be bad for the child. When the child was picked up, his cheeks and earlobes quickly became hot. My heartbeat unconsciously became faster. Garrett's eyes suddenly lit up, and he covered mine with his other hand, his tone full of surprise. "So, brother, you mean to take responsibility for me? Let me give birth to the baby. What else?" Garrett moved closer to me, his breath fanning my cheek as he spoke, giving me an inexplicable sense of ambiguity. "So what should I call you, brother? Boyfriend? Or husband?" The last two came crashing down suddenly, making me dizzy and seeing stars. Suddenly I felt as if I had been electrocuted, and even a tingling sensation rose in my tailbone. After a long while, I finally heard myself answering in an extremely unnatural voice, "Whatever you want." Then he pretended not to care and climbed onto the bed. But my heart couldn't calm down for a long time, and the word husband kept lingering in my ears. Being called that by a boy, I feel so ashamed. His hands suddenly grabbed the bed sheets, and his pounding heartbeat was particularly obvious in the quiet night. I kept my eyes open until I was tired and then closed them. The second before falling asleep, I was still comforting myself. Forget it, it's shameful. Anyway, I'm going to get married in the future, and I'll have to listen to it inevitably. In this way, I convinced myself and began to take on unfamiliar roles: Garrett's husband, and the father of the child. 7. Spending significantly more time with Garrett. I would eat with him, go to class with him, and go back to the dormitory with him. It only took 2 weeks for me to go from being uncomfortable at first to gradually adapting. Even the second and fourth children clearly felt the change in our relationship, laughing and joking about when we became so close. I can only laugh it off. Who would have thought that not long ago I still disliked him very much? After getting along with him for so long, I found that Garrett is actually a pretty good person, except that he is a little picky sometimes. As long as I don't agree to do something he does, his eyes will immediately turn red, and then he will put his hands on his abdomen and look at me aggrievedly. It made it seem like I was bullying him and the baby in his belly. But some things do make me feel outrageous, but there is nothing I can do about it. For example, now when he takes a shower, he always pulls me into the bathroom and asks me to stand by and wait, under the pretext of preventing him from falling in the bathroom alone. The sound of dripping water could be heard, and even with my back turned, the temperature of my cheeks and earlobes rose unconsciously. "Have you finished washing? The second and fourth brothers will be back soon." It would be difficult to explain if they came back and saw us. I held my stiff neck and urged him to wash faster. The sound of water paused for a moment, and then Garrett's voice rang out. Okay, then I'll speed up. Brother, can you help me get the shower gel? It's right next to you. Oh, what a hassle. I responded, muttering to myself. Unexpectedly, after getting the shower gel, he subconsciously forgot that Garrett was still taking a shower and turned around and handed it to him. When everything came into view, I felt my brain suddenly go blank. Garrett's long hair was still dripping with water, flowing down his collarbone, and his cold white face was stained with a thin layer of blush from taking a shower. The whole person is so elegant and good-looking. After several seconds, I turned around suddenly like a machine. Thank you, brother. Garrett's voice was tinged with a smile, and he seemed to be in a good mood. Is the bathroom stuffy? Brother, your ears are red, aren't they? The scent of shower gel spread in the bathroom, and the moment the sound of water came, I seemed to hear my own heartbeat. The scene I just saw kept appearing in my mind. My Adam's apple rolled unconsciously, and I felt like my whole body was burning. Are they all men? What haven't you seen? Why should I be nervous? I kept comforting myself in my heart, but the strange feeling did not go away. I could only pretend to be impatient and respond, "Stop talking and go take a bath." Garrett didn't get angry when he heard that, and replied, "Okay," obediently. A few minutes later, I opened the bathroom door. The tiring process was finally over. Fortunately, it was safe and sound, and the second and fourth brothers did not come back. It's a blessing in disguise. I breathed a sigh of relief, but when I raised my feet to leave, I felt my legs inexplicably weak. It's really fucking torture. 9. It was night. After the lights in the dormitory were turned off, everything became quiet. I was lying on my bed, scrolling through my phone out of boredom. Just as I was wondering whether to go to bed, a message popped up on WeChat. It was from Garrett. Brother, I just watched a horror movie and now I'm a little scared. Can I come over and sleep with you? After that, he also sent an expression of a pitiful crying kitten. My brain suddenly became clear and I was about to type a rejection. No, the bed is so narrow, it's hard to sleep on it. Just bear with it, and you won't be scared after a while. Unexpectedly, before I could click send, another message popped up. The baby is also scared. I just felt him kick me. Then you come. As if I had lost all my strength and means, I sighed softly. Why do I feel like someone is holding a hold on my vitals? The scene he saw when Garrett was taking a shower reappeared in his mind. His 8 abdominal muscles were neatly arranged and full of sexual tension. Is he really pregnant with my child? I wasn't thinking about it for long when I felt the bed frame shake and then I saw Garrett's face. My heart started beating wildly again, and I looked away awkwardly, not wanting to look at him. It happened that the second and fourth sons were not asleep at this time and suddenly noticed the noise. Hey, director, who climbed into your bed? The third one. Yes, we plan to do it together. Before I could figure out how to respond, I heard Garrett speak first, and his words made my eyebrows jump. I was so scared that I quickly covered his mouth and said, "We plan to play games together and improve our rank tonight." Oh, so that's how it is. Keep quiet for a while. I'm going to sleep. Okay. Fortunately, no one was suspicious and I finally felt relieved. In just the next second, I felt warmth in my palms. My eyes widened and I dropped my hand when I realized what Garrett was doing. What are you doing? I asked in a low voice, but he showed no shame at all. My brother covered my mouth. It was a bit uncomfortable. After saying that, he came closer to me, looking tired. I'm so sleepy. Can I go to sleep now, brother? Can. I answered stiffly, constantly comforting myself in my heart. It's okay. We're going to get married in the future anyway. And we're going to sleep together. It's just a matter of adapting to it in advance. It's okay. I am a responsible person, and he is also a boy. It's okay. After taking a few deep breaths, I was just about to draw a line between Chu and Han. Garrett hugged me directly, and before I could react, something soft suddenly touched the corner of my mouth and then separated. When our breaths intertwined, my breathing stopped and my whole body suddenly froze. There was a loud bang in the brain, as if something collapsed. Garrett, he kissed me? although I know that we did something more intimate than kissing that night when we were drunk. But being drunk and sober are different. Very different. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know if it was out of shock or panic, but for a moment, I actually felt like I was suffocating. However, the culprit did not feel the slightest bit of guilt and fell asleep with his head buried in my shoulder. I was left alone staring blankly, and all my sleepiness disappeared. What I said was indeed right. The bed in the dormitory was indeed a bit small. It was really crowded for two grown boys to sleep together. We couldn't separate even if we wanted to. My hot body temperature was transmitted through the thin fabric, and Garrett held my waist tightly. I felt like I was on fire and uncomfortable all over, but I couldn't push him away. I can only endure it. My mind kept replaying the story of how Garrett and I met, from not liking each other at first to being able to shower together and sleep in the same bed together now. We will become closer in the future, get married, have a child, and form a family. My face can't stop getting hot when I think of this. The head buried in my shoulder rubbed against my neck, and the softness reflected on my neck, making it hot. My breathing stopped for a moment. I raised my hand, hesitated for a long time, and finally fell on the top of his head and rubbed it. Forget it, Garrett is good in other aspects except that he is a man. She is good-looking, has a good figure, a slim waist, long legs, and fair skin. The male college student is handsome and meets all 5 conditions. If this were put in the circle, it would definitely be a natural dish. I don't suffer any loss either. And she was pregnant with my child. Then I just bend slightly? With this in mind, I gently closed the distance between me and Garrett. Because of nervousness, the pounding heartbeat became very obvious in the dark night, and my hands trembled unconsciously. The moment I pressed my lips against hers, a scent of hair hit me in the face and my heart almost jumped out of my chest. I blinked, feeling some emotion running rampant in my chest, and my mind suddenly became clear. It's not that difficult to like Garrett. I was immersed in my own world, and I didn't notice that the boy who buried his head in my neck seemed to curl his lips and raise an arc. 10. Since I made peace with myself, I've become more open about some of Garrett's intimate behaviors. For example, during class, he would always secretly hook my hand under the table and interlock our fingers. For example, every night after the 2nd and 4th children fall asleep, he will secretly climb onto my bed, hold me and sleep with me. And he gives me a good morning kiss and a good night kiss every day. From being uncomfortable at first to becoming addicted, I always felt like a frog being boiled in warm water. I was gradually hooked by him, gradually got used to Garrett's presence, and gradually fell in love with him. In the 2nd month of Garrett's pregnancy, we made an appointment to meet with both sets of parents, hoping to get the marriage certificate as soon as possible. After all, doesn't the book say that pregnancy can be obvious after 3 months? Although Garrett's abdominal muscles are still very obvious now, maybe the time has not come yet. Maybe they will be visible in a few days. The process went unexpectedly smoothly. His parents were very tolerant and did not feel puzzled that their son's partner was a boy. It's just that the look in his eyes is a little strange. He looks at me a bit like he's looking at his daughter-in-law, but I was obviously the man who raped their son. And they didn't seem to know about Garrett's pregnancy. Forget it, never mind. Maybe Garrett was afraid of upsetting them. All in all, everything went smoothly, until the day before I was going abroad to get the certificate. 11. That day, Garrett and I had just asked for leave from our counselor and were preparing to go back to the dormitory to rest for a while, and then started packing our things. As a result, the entire park lost power due to circuit maintenance. The worst part was that my phone's battery was at 1% at the time, so it didn't work whether I turned it on or not. As a heavy mobile phone addict, I can't live without it for a moment. So when Garrett was about to pack up, I took his phone and watched the video. Just when I was browsing the web enthusiastically, a message suddenly popped up on the browser about some things to pay attention to when getting married. I was distracted and clicked on it. Maybe it's because we're going to get our marriage certificate tomorrow and enter the palace of marriage. I felt inexplicably nervous and anxious, so I kept reading. I unexpectedly found that it was well written, except that some aspects were missing. I'm going to go to Baidu to check again. Unexpectedly, As soon as I opened the search bar, I saw a lot of historical records. Can men get pregnant? Is there a mysterious race whose males can get pregnant? How to use children to tie a man's heart? Where is this search record? My brain went blank for a moment, then I reacted. Fuck, Garrett fooled me. So what mysterious race is fake? Is Garrett making this up? He wasn't pregnant at all. It was not until now that I realized that I had been fooled. I was wondering how a man could get pregnant, and what mysterious race is that? And it was obviously me who was being pressed, so it was me who should get pregnant. Is it his turn? My anger was rising, and I quickly walked over to Garrett, who was packing his things. He reached out and touched his abdomen. Still have 8-pack abs, still tight. There is no sign of pregnancy at all. What's wrong, brother? Seeing my sudden movement, Garrett showed a puzzled expression on his face and covered my face with his hand. Why do I feel like there's something wrong with my brother's face? It would be better if you didn't mention it. I'll explode if you do. I pushed his hand away and thrust the phone screen in front of him. Garrett, you lied to me. You are not from some mysterious race at all. You're not pregnant at all. I thought so. The one who was pressed that night was clearly. It's obviously me. How come you are pregnant? Before he could finish the second half of his sentence, he heard a thump sound. Garrett bent his long legs and knelt down towards me. My eyes widened in disbelief. No, Garrett, what are you doing? The boy who was called had no color on his face, but his eyes were red. I'm sorry, brother. I lied to you. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have done this. But after that night, you kept avoiding me. I was so scared. I was so scared that you would ignore me. So I came up with this bad idea. Sorry. Garrett said this while crying. He looked so pitiful that the fire I had raised was extinguished in an instant. With a soft sigh, I took his hand. You should get up first. But Garrett rejected it. He shook his head repeatedly, looking apologetic. This is all my fault. I should have been kneeling. I'm sorry, brother. As he spoke, he lowered his eyes. His thick eyelashes trembled slightly, and he felt full of brokenness. Do you hate me now? Ah, they think I'm a habitual liar and will do anything to achieve my goals. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I lied to you and betrayed your trust. I will move out later. Oh? I will never appear in front of you again. Oh? Can you please stop hating me so much? Stop! I quickly interrupted Garrett, looking confused. When did I ever say I hated you? The long-haired boy's face was blank for a moment, and then an expression of surprise appeared. He held my hand tightly as if it were a life-saving straw. Brother, so what you mean is, you don't hate me? You're not angry anymore? You should get up first. I waited for Garrett to get up and cough twice. Actually, there is a little bit. That is. It's the fact that I've fallen in love with Garrett. No matter if he lied to me or not, I've already fallen in love with him. Besides, I can't help but feel soft-hearted when he cries. Forget it, at worst I can let him do all the housework in the future. Thinking of this, what he just said came to my mind again, and I couldn't help but feel puzzled. You were afraid that I would ignore you before? Was it because you liked me? As soon as the question was asked, Garrett answered immediately. Yes, I like you, brother. I like you very much. That's why I'm scared. I'm afraid you'll ignore me. Such a frank answer made my face turn red for no reason. Why do you like me? I remember that, at the beginning, I didn't have a very good impression of you, so I wasn't very nice to you either. Garrett met my gaze, his eyes reflecting my appearance, very bright, as if there were tiny starlight. Because my brother is a very good person. That's why I like you so much. Garrett moved closer to me and kissed the corner of my mouth before continuing. I wonder if my brother still remembers the last mock exam in his senior year of high school? You were taking the entrance exam at number 1 middle school, and I was a student at number 1 middle school. When talking about the past, the expression on Garrett's face became particularly gentle. At that time, I was a boarding student, and because I was in a hurry, I left without having breakfast. Who knew I would have low blood sugar on the way to the exam and fainted? I was half asleep and felt someone carrying me. I struggled to open my eyes and all I saw was my brother's profile and the mole behind his ear. But after just one look, I couldn't hold on any longer and fainted again. When I woke up, you were gone. We only met once, but I can't forget you. I dream about you often. So brother, you asked me why I like you. I don't think it's strange that anyone likes you, as a good person like you. As I finished speaking, my thoughts were drawn back to that mock exam. At that time, a boy did faint and people were coming and going around. Maybe because it was none of their business, or because the exam preparation bell had already rung, no one paid any attention. I couldn't bear to watch it anymore, so I sent him to the infirmary. Is that person Garrett? After a moment, I burst out laughing. So you've been plotting against me for a long time? That's why you deliberately teased me in college. Brother, this is seduction. The internet says that all boys fall for this, but I never thought. I didn't expect I would be so straight. Not only did she not eat it, she also thought he was a green tea. Garrett hesitated to speak, his eyes showing a hint of helplessness. But I've eaten now. The first time I took the initiative to put my lips on the corner of Garrett's mouth. My heart was beating uncontrollably fast, but I still planned to express my feelings. Male green tea seems not bad either. Then pack up your things, catch your flight, and go get the certificate tomorrow? Collar. After we finished talking, we looked at each other's appearance reflected in our eyes. They said it almost at the same time. Brother, I like you. Garrett, I like you. Then they smiled at each other and couldn't look away. End of text. Extra. After I got the marriage certificate abroad, I received news from my second and fourth children. No, boss. Where did you and the third brother go? How am I supposed to live without you in the dorm? Yes, woo-woo, director. I miss you so much. I really want to be a jerk in front of you. I really want you to scold me. The corner of my mouth twitched, and then I replied, go and do business. What's the matter? After the second child asked the question, he made an expression with a face full of question marks. I looked at the face of the handsome boy with long hair beside me and couldn't help but curl my lips. It's a big event in life. I got my certificate. What? The dormitory group was immediately flooded with a series of exclamation marks. I hooked my finger at Garrett, motioning him to come over. Do you want to make it official? I wonder if my brother is going to make me public? These words made me smell the fragrance of tea immediately, and I couldn't help but refute. You make me look like a scumbag when you say that. Publish it now. After a few seconds, 2 more circles of friends appeared on WeChat. Garrett, I want to have a relationship with the purpose of getting married. At Mason, me, a goal achieved. At Garrett, the picture is our marriage certificate. Refresh the page and there are immediately 2 more comments below. Second brother? Old 4? E?